Hello students, here we are looking at the end of module 16 now. We're in part C, the part I've made up, looking at mammals on their own. Okay, so mammals have a lot of cool characteristics, and so I'm going to be telling you a lot more about them than you need to know for your page write-up, okay? So you'll be writing up a few things here, and then you'll just be listening to cool stuff other than that. Okay, what about mammals? Well, they have certain characteristics, and they are these. They all have hair covering the skin. We'll get into that in more detail in a minute, talking about how some don't seem to have hair, but they do, so I'll show you that. They reproduce with internal fertilization and therefore usually viviparous. In other words, they have live birth. There are some strange ones out there, so we'll look at kind of these three different groups of mammals out there and how really their form of giving birth sort of separates them out. They nourish their young with milk secreted from specialized glands, and those glands are called mammary glands, which is where we get the word mammal from mammary gland. They have a four-chambered heart, and they're endothermic, meaning they are warm-blooded and therefore can regulate their temperature no matter where they find themselves. All right, I've been having a little trouble with my computer playing videos, so let's see if it works. Here's hoping. I rebooted it, and we'll see.
Mammals, from giant whales to small mice to great apes, much like ourselves, are among the most advanced of Earth's creatures. All mammals share two traits. We feed our young with mother's milk, and we have hair, more or less. Mammals nursing their young produce fewer offspring than other animals, but the youngsters have a much higher rate of survival than newly hatched birds, reptiles, and insects. This young orangutan will stay with its mother for 8 years. Hair, like the coats worn by these high alpine guanacos, offers mammals another advantage. Hair and the sweat glands that come with it helps mammals stay warm in cold climates. Over time, mammals have moved into nearly all of Earth's habitats. Polar bears have adapted to life in the Arctic, where the inhospitable cold makes fur coats essential. Marine mammals, like porpoises and humpback whales, thrive in cold oceans. They still have a few hairs around their mouths, but a more efficient underwater insulator is a thick layer of fat, keeping heat in and cold out. Elephants battle heat. Their skin, covered in fine hairs, is wrinkled, making it easy to trap cooling mud in the creases. Spots on the coats of leopards and cheetahs help them hide. Their fur works to camouflage the big cats stalking prey in tall grasses. There are 7,500 species of reptiles and amphibians, and some 8,600 species of birds. Only 4,100 species of mammals exist, but they dominate the land and sea. Mammals have evolved with greater speed and agility than most other animals. Limbs that are lined up to support weight and drive mammals forward help browsing mammals run from mammalian predators armed with tooth and claw. And when natural advantages fail, some mammals fashion tools to help them out. This orangutan is working on a spoon to help him scoop ants out of a tree. Tool making was once thought to be a skill exclusive to the human mammal, but all great apes and some other animals make tools. So what separates us from the rest of the mammals? Our ability to communicate? To parent? To show emotion? Perhaps a better question is to ask what makes us all so alike.
Okay, so that played. Good. Let's see if it keeps working. So let's talk about the hair. Body hair in mammals, it's sometimes obvious, like we mentioned before, and in the video you saw that some of the other ones not quite so obvious, but they all have some form of hair or follicle in the skin. All right, so living cells near the root push the dead cells up to form a shaft of hair, like on our heads. Functions to give warmth to the animal. It can contribute to camouflage. And then, of course, it has some specialty things like nerve signals like the cat's whiskers, things like this. There are some mammals who use specialized hair for defense. So right there, check it out. We got a porcupine. In fact, I had some porcupine quills to bring today to you, to class, and you could see how amazing they are. They are very stiff, very sharp, and they could be used as an arrow. I mean, they're hard, very hard. So, and that is a type of hair. Other specialized type of hairs you might think of, like the rhinoceros has the horn, and that horn is hair mixture there. All right, reproduction. We see a mama and her babies up there. They reproduce with internal fertilization. They are viviparous, meaning they're going to give live birth. That's most, right? And the ones that are the most common, so we're going to look at 3 different types, but the most common type out there, the ones you think of when you think of animals typically, are the placental mammals. So the placenta is a vascular structure. That means it's got a lot of blood supply to it. It provides nutrients and oxygen from the mother to the baby. It results with an umbilical cord and a belly button for the baby, right? Gestational periods vary from species to species. Typically, the smaller the creature, the shorter the gestational time. It's not necessarily true, but it seems to be. Like, for instance, I think elephants have a gestational period of about 18 months, whereas humans are right at 9 months. And after birth, the newborn is nourished by mother's milk through mammary glands, okay, which is pretty much the definition of them, right? This is a picture of a placenta. All right, so it's kind of strange looking here, but this part is up against mom's body, okay, so it's inside her body in a thing called the womb, right, the uterus. And then the umbilical cord right here is going to be going to the baby. So the baby's blood vessels come in through the umbilical cord. The rest of this cord will be connected to the baby's belly, right? And the baby's blood supply comes in and it's very vascular. See all that blood in there? Yeah. So this is all baby right here. And down here we see this is mom's blood, okay? So mom's blood's coming in the artery. Notice how, I want you to see right here how close the arteries get to the baby's arteries, but they never actually touch. All right, so mama does not share her blood with her baby. They have 2 different blood systems, 2 different circulatory systems. So mom could have type A blood and the baby could have type B blood, okay? So, because they're completely separate. They just come really, really close. Very thin membrane here for that oxygen and the nutrients to pass through, and then the waste products to pass out. All right, let's hope this video works. It's pretty good.
What do these animals have in common? More than you might think. Along with over 5,000 other species, they're mammals, or members of class Mammalia. All mammals are vertebrates, meaning they have backbones. But mammals are distinguished from other vertebrates by a number of shared features. That includes warm blood, body hair or fur, the ability to breathe using lungs, and nourishing their young with milk. But despite these similarities, these creatures also have many biological differences. And one of the most remarkable is how they give birth. Let's start with the most familiar, placental mammals. This group includes humans, cats, dogs, giraffes, and even the blue whale, the biggest animal on Earth. Its placenta, a solid disc of blood-rich tissue, attaches to the wall of the uterus to support the developing embryo. The placenta is what keeps the calf alive during pregnancy. Directly connected to the mother's blood supply, it funnels nutrients and oxygen straight into the calf's body via the umbilical cord, and also exports its waste. Placental mammals can spend far longer inside the womb than other mammals. Baby blue whales, for instance, spend almost a full year inside their mother. The placenta keeps the calf alive right up until its birth, when the umbilical cord breaks and the newborn's own respiratory, circulatory, and waste disposal systems take over. Measuring about 23 feet, a newborn calf is already able to swim. It'll spend the next 6 months drinking 225 liters of its mother's thick, fatty milk per day. Meanwhile, in Australia, you can find a second type of mammal, marsupials. Marsupial babies are so tiny and delicate when they're born that they must continue developing in the mother's pouch. Take the quoll, one of the world's smallest marsupials, which weighs only 18 milligrams at birth, the equivalent of about 30 sugar grains. The kangaroo, another marsupial, gives birth to a single jelly bean-sized baby at a time. The third, and arguably strangest example of mammalian birth. There were once hundreds of monotreme species, but there are only 5 left. 4 species of echidnas and the duck-billed platypus. The name monotreme means one whole, referring to the single orifice they use for reproduction, excretion, and egg-laying. Like birds, reptiles, fish, dinosaurs, and others, these species lay eggs instead of giving birth to live young. Their eggs are soft-shelled, and when their babies hatch, they suckle milk from pores on their mother's body until they're large enough to feed themselves. Despite laying eggs and other adaptations that we associate more with non-mammals, like the duck-billed platypus's webbed feet, bill, and the venomous spur males have on their feet, they are, in fact, mammals. That's because they share the defining characteristics of mammalia, and are evolutionarily linked to the rest of the class. Whether placental, marsupial, or monotreme, each of these creatures and its unique birthing methods, however bizarre, have succeeded for many millennia in bringing new life and diversity into the mammal kingdom.
Okay, another good video there. So these are the major mammalian orders. Okay, so let's see what we can find here. Okay, there's some, notice our marsupials are at the bottom there. I think I have something circled here. Nope, guess not. All right, so we can see up here, this group over here, we have the Cetacea, Artiodactyla, Perissodactyla, Carnivora, Pinnipedia. We're going to look at many of these, Insectivora, Rodentia, Lagomorphs, and here's primates. That's where we are. That's where humans end up, right in there. We have a weird one here called Xenartha, and then our Sirenia and our marsupials. Okay, so those are the major orders, and you can see how that would require a whole lot of study if you wanted to go into zoology. Let's start with Carnivora. Oops, I guess we're watching a video on this. Here's to hoping it works.
Order Carnivora contains many of the meat-eating animals with which you are familiar. The cheetah, found mainly in Africa, is designed to chase down its prey. Over short distances, it is the fastest ground animal on Earth, attaining speeds of up to 70 miles per hour. It hunts by day, feeding mainly on antelope. The lion is one of the largest cats. Lions have 30 teeth, designed exclusively for the consumption of meat. Only male lions grow a mane around the shoulders, which grows darker and fuller as the animal ages. Lions are unusual among cats for their habit of living in groups, which we call prides. A pride consists of 2 to 12 adult females and their cubs. Pride females care for the cubs together, hunt and eat together, and defend their territory from other prides. Males maintain ownership of a pride. Males without prides do not live very long because they do not hunt. They typically feed on the kills made by the females. A bear is distinguished from other members of order Carnivora by its heavy body, short tail, short rounded ears, and feet with 5-clawed toes. Bears can be found on all continents except Africa, Antarctica, and Australia. Although members of order Carnivora, many bears are omnivorous. The grizzly, for example, eats fish, but it also eats grasses, herbs, berries, and nuts. Most bears go through a period of hibernation during the winter of each year. During this time, they enter a deep slumber state in which they go without food or elimination of waste for 3 to 7 months.
Gross. Okay, there we go. Artiodactyla So we're going to look at Artiodactyla and Perissodactyla. Okay, they're similar to each other, but they have different number of toes. All right, so the Perissodactyla are the odd-toed ungulates. So an ungulate has to do with their stomach and how they have several stomachs to help with the digestion process. All right, so the odd-toed, so that would be one toe, 3 toes. That's about it, probably. I don't think they have, yeah, 5 toes, maybe 5 toes, I'm not sure. We have the horse, the zebra, and the rhino are that part of that group. The Artiodactyla have even toed, so they're ungulates, so they have the stomach situation going on there, where they have the up to 4 stomachs that are helping digest the food. But they have even toed, 2, 4 toes like this. So we're looking at the sheep, the deer, the bison, pigs, and cows. They have many chambers, and because of that, they tend to start to digest their food, and then they'll cough it up and chew it some more, and then they'll swallow it and digest it a little more. That's called chewing cud. So all these types, all of these ungulates, including all the Artiodactyla and the Perissodactyla, all chew their cud. So we can see an example right there of a giraffe. It is an ungulate, and can you tell how many toes it has? Oh, there we go, 2 toes. So therefore, it's going to be in which group? Our Artiodactyla group, right? Look at those toes. I wanted to show you this this foot of the camel because I want you to see how spread out their foot is, and this is so they can walk on the sand, right? So it's almost like they have a built-in sand shoe there, or a snowshoe type of a thing, right? So there we go. There's our Artiodactyla example. We're going to watch a video for our Perissodactyla.
Order Perissodactyla contains the odd-toed, hooved mammals. One of its members is the rhino. There are 5 species of rhino living today. This is one of them, the white rhino. Now you may not think this is very white, but in fact it is lighter than the other African rhino, the black rhino. White rhinos tend to live in plains, like the plain you see here, whereas black rhinos prefer the forests. Here we see a young rhino. Notice how small its horn is. Interestingly enough, rhino horns are not made from ivory like elephant horns. Instead, they're actually made from hair. The hair grows from the skin and is specialized to be very hard because it has a lot of the protein called keratin. As the rhino grows and matures, these keratinized fibers form a nice, sharp horn that it can use to defend itself.
Okay, there we go. Our next group, the order Rodentia. You can see the word rodent in there. You can see over here, they're mostly by their teeth. Okay, so definitely we're going to see these gnawing teeth right here. And in fact, these creatures have to gnaw. If they don't gnaw, their teeth will grow too large for them to be able to eat anything. If you've ever owned, for instance, a pet mouse or something, you'll notice you always have to give them something to chew on. When I was growing up, I had gerbils, and they used to reproduce like crazy. But we used to always put like little toilet paper rolls and things like, and they just chewed and chewed and chewed and chewed. So they were like fanatic chewers. Well, it turns out they're filing their teeth down when they chew like that, and it's important otherwise because the teeth just keep growing and growing and growing. So we see gerbils, chipmunks, mice, prairie dog, flying squirrel, gray squirrel, beaver, capybara, which are the biggest, I believe, and a porcupine. They're all in this group with those crazy teeth. Look at that cute little thing. Some of them are cute, especially when they're not in your house, in your pantry, eating your cereal, right? Now, you might be wondering why bunny wasn't on that list, okay? Because they have teeth like that, right? And it's true, they do. They do have those gnawing type teeth, and bunnies must gnaw as well. In fact, bunnies, people who had these as pets, they used to bring them into the animal hospital where I worked, and what we needed to do was actually trim their teeth. We literally would take those nail cutters like you use on a dog's toenails and take it and trim their teeth down. And that's because the people, the owners, weren't giving them enough hard stuff to chew on. So they need to chew and have their teeth come, be worked down regularly as well. Otherwise, they won't be able to eat, and they literally could starve to death. So they're so cute here. They're called the order Lagomorph, or the Lagomorpha. And the big difference is, I want you to look real closely here. You can see those gnawing teeth right there, but look behind it. Do you see these? That's a little second pair of teeth right there. So this makes them different enough, to some scientists' minds, to put them in their own group. Okay, so they're similar to the rodents, but they have that second little row of teeth back there. Order Insectivora. So this order are named by what they eat, and what they eat are obviously insects. We're looking at right here a creature called a mole, and he's called a star-nosed mole. They live underground and they dig. You look at those claws. They dig through the ground and can cause actually lots of damage to gardens and things like this. I want you to notice also on this guy, do you see any eyes? This is his nose. Look at his face. All right, creepy, creepy. They have no eyes. And so you might think, my goodness gracious, how awful. Well, they live underground and they stay underground. The reason this guy's above the ground, looks how wet everything is. It must have been raining and he probably came up because his house got flooded or something. But they go digging underground, always looking for insects. That nose pattern right there, you can see, is very sensitive to movements and smell. And so they can go find those insects by feeling them move around underground. This is another type right here. It's called a vole, V-O-L-E. Kind of like a mouse, right? But it's different. It's not a rodent. Notice its mouth doesn't have those, it's not enough room to accommodate those gnawing teeth right there. It probably has a tongue that shoots out or something like that to catch bugs. And this little guy, so cute. Not a rodent. This is a hedgehog. They can make, fun pets if you don't mind not cuddling, because they don't, their fur is pretty prickly, right? So you can't really cuddle with them. But they eat insects, and lots of people have them for pets. All right, the order primate right here, you can see a bunch of different kinds right here, mostly the apes and the monkeys. So the big difference between ape and monkey, do I have that here? Yes, so here's our primates. So notice we have a group over here called, where the lemurs are found. Lemurs are pretty cool. And then we have this group here broken into the New World the New World primates and the Old World primates. And we can see here the New World, that literally means they were found over here in the Americas. All right, and never been seen before. We have the spider monkey, squirrel monkey, the marmoset, the howler monkey, and others. In our Old World, though, we break them into apes and monkeys. So the New World doesn't have any apes. All right, so what is the big difference between apes and monkeys? Do you know? Typically, apes will get larger, but they don't have a tail. Okay, so we have a gibbon, and we have the great apes, the orangutans, chimpanzees, bonobos, and gorillas. The monkeys have tails. All right, they have tails. The baboon, the colobus, and the mandrill, those types right there. Here we go. Apes are intelligent, monkeys not as intelligent. Apes no tail, monkeys almost all have tails. They have a smooth flat nose on the ape and a snout, not a nose, on the monkey. The apes can learn sign language. That's one of the reasons they're considered more intelligent, where the monkeys don't do that. I would have to say, though, in my opinion, I believe that the monkeys are cuter. Don't you think? Look at that cute one on the right there. Very cute. So I would say, essentially, if I asked you the question, what's the differences between an ape and a monkey, I would bring up the tail issue. All right, this one might have, I think this is where I've circled it. Right there, here we go. So the humans are over here. We're considered a great ape. How about that, y'all? Of course, I refuse to agree with that classification. I believe humans are in a group all of their own, made in the image of God. All right, so I wouldn't go with these. But you see how these are broken into so many different kinds right here. So notice the gorilla and the chimpanzee is in our same group right there. So those are the ones we have the most in common with. But you can look along this list here and see a bunch of different kinds of monkeys and apes. Okay, so we have the Old World, the New World, and then those weird ones over there to the left. Aquatic mammals, these are a lot of fun right here. We're looking right here at order Sirenia. These are the manatee. They're such great creatures. They're called sea cows. These ones are underwater. I want you to notice here, notice their nostrils. They have the ability to close their nostrils, sort of like how we close our eyelids, to protect our eyes. And that keeps them, because they're mammals, so they're breathing with lungs. They'll need to go to the surface to get air. But they are so slow and so laid back. They live sort of in brackish water. Florida has a lot of them. The water brackish means it's part salt and part fresh, near the coastal regions, but like where rivers have emptied out some of their fresh water. They're so slow, but you can see right here on this one's back. See that? Algae's growing on their backs, okay, because they're slow and kind of just lumbering around, but very cool looking. This is a manatee. There's also one called a dugong. Order Cetacea, this is going to include the whales and dolphins. So our aquatic mammals, the ones that must come up to breathe, but they live in the water their whole lives. Of course, they have the fins, the flippers, and things like this. I think we're looking at a humpback whale right there. Whale flukes are very interesting. They are very specific per individual. This is like a fingerprint for us. So there are marine biologists out there who can just get a glimpse of a whale fluke. That's their tail. We're looking at it right there. And they can look at it very closely. They may need to get a picture and check it against other things. And they can name you the whale because they name them. They give them names based on the characteristics of their fluke. So right here we can see the notch, and then we can see the edge and the tips. So this one looks like it's all black, but all these little ridges right here would all be different for this individual whale. Some whales have a color on there, like white and black splotches and things like that. The beluga whale is considered the canary of the sea. We're going to see in a minute how whales and dolphins echolocate by using special sounds coming from their blowhole and going through this area right here. But I just love that the beluga whale has such a large melon. That's called the melon. Here's our dolphin right there, also with the melon on their head right there. Notice the teeth. These are considered toothed whales. So there are two types of whales out there, a toothed whale, including the dolphin, and the baleen whale that have a very specialized type of a mouth. Instead of teeth, they have sort of a comb system in there. Let's watch a little video on dolphins, because everybody loves dolphins.
Dolphins are aquatic mammals designed to be powerful swimmers. They are found in all seas. In one day, dolphins eat nearly 1/3 of their weight. Their favorite food items are fish and squid. Dolphins are swift enough to easily outdistance their prey. They seize their catches with jaws that have from 200 to 250 sharp teeth. Dolphins, like whales, breathe through a blowhole at the top of the head. As they travel, they break surface about every 2 minutes to make a short, explosive exhalation, followed by a longer inhalation before submerging again. The tail, like that of other aquatic mammals, strokes in an up and down motion, driving the dolphin forward. The flippers are used for stabilization. Dolphins are superbly streamlined and can sustain speeds of up to 19 miles an hour with bursts of more than 25 miles an hour. Dolphins emit clicking sounds in short pulses of about 300 sounds per second. Emitted from just below the blowhole, these clicks are used for the echolocation of objects and are projected forward by an acoustic lens called the oily melon, which is located above the forehead. Echoes from the clicks are then received in an area of the lower jaw and transmitted by a fat organ to the middle ear. This incredibly well-designed echolocation system enables the dolphin to navigate among its companions, find objects, detect fish, squid, and even small shrimp. Dolphins can also emit a single-tone squeal that comes from deeper in the larynx. Here's an example of such a squeal.
Okay, so those people are swimming with dolphins. How fun would that be? Dolphins are very playful and almost like playing with a child or something. And furthermore, they actually like humans. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is in the wild somewhere. But of course, we have SeaWorld and places like that where we keep dolphins around and they become used to people. But even in nature, they tend to be fairly friendly to humans. There have been stories of how they have helped, children who were drowning and they bring them to the surface and things like this. Many people always talk about how intelligent dolphins are, and I agree, they are intelligent, but we can't put them on the same plane as humans. They're not building any hospitals or anything, so they're not that smart. The echolocation that was mentioned there, I always thought it was interesting that their larynx is actually, up here in their blowhole, right? So they're making the noise from up here, the air sacs right here. And so the noise is coming out here. It actually amplifies through the melon and sends out, and it hits a target. Let's see a fish right here. And then that bounces back, and the dolphin actually receives that information in the lower jaw. And it goes through this area called the acoustic window, and that goes to the inner ear, to the brain, so they can actually figure out where their prey is. Let's watch a really cool video about this.
India, the Ganges. It isn't salty, but it's just about everything else. It's certainly muddy, with only a few inches of visibility. And the dolphins here don't have any lenses on their eyes at all, and can probably just see light and dark. So how does the Ganges dolphin find its way around? How does it find the fish that it eats? It relies almost exclusively on a sense that all cetaceans are masters of: echolocation, sonar. Its entire head is built around an array of sending and receiving equipment. The dolphin makes clicks near its blowhole, and then in a fat-filled cavity in its forehead called a melon, the sound is guided into a narrow beam. Sound is sent out as a series of short pulses. The echoes that are reflected back are heard through the dolphin's lower jaw, which is connected to the ears. It's as good as vision. In some ways, better. Dolphins can see things that can't be seen. Dave Goodson is from the Underwater Acoustics Group at Loughborough University in England.
We're looking at the dolphin's sonar, and just to put it into perspective, a bottlenose dolphin can see something the size of an orange about 80 meters ahead of him. And that is approximately equivalent to the echo it would get from quite a large fish, but one that it could still swallow whole. So we've got a good feel, I think, for what they do in the wild when they're looking for fish mid-water. But then we discover the interesting things, like the dolphin who is looking into the seabed surface at close range, and clearly has detected the presence of a fish that's buried in the sand. Now, the echoes at the frequencies they produce should bounce from the sand, but they're able to get some information from below the sand particles, and they will sometimes even dive into the sand to recover them.
If dolphin sonar seems sophisticated, it's because the animals have had 20 million years to adapt and perfect it.
As if. All right, order Chiroptera. These are the only flying mammal out there are bats. Okay, so we're looking at a really creepy looking bat right there. They also have a pretty sophisticated use of echolocation. Oh, okay, that's all I'm going to say about them, I guess. So they're fur covered, you can see right there, and they fly. So they're different types. The one we have around here is called the Mexican freetail. Notice the tail on this one has all that material right there. What am I trying to say? That flesh right there. The ones that are around here don't have that. They just have that tail sticking down, and this is not attached right there. That's why it's called the Mexican freetail. And of course, they're very helpful creatures because they eat a lot of insects, a lot of mosquitoes in particular. So they're very useful that way. The one we're looking at here may very well be a vampire bat because you see his mouth right there. Vampire bats are the ones, they actually spend a lot of time hopping on the ground, that they'll go up to typically cows or some fairly sedate animals in the middle of the night, and they'll bite on their toe or something and suck a little blood out of them. Yeah, it doesn't, the animal typically doesn't really pay attention to them. So it's not creepy like some scary movie or something. One thing I do want you to notice is right here on their wings right here, see these right here? Those are their fingers. All right, so picture this is the carpal and metacarpal and the phalanges, just like on your hand. So they just have that weird, finger action going on there. All right, now we're going to look at the exceptions to the characteristics of mammals. In other words, the non-placental mammals. So we're looking at marsupials and then our duck-billed platypus laying the eggs. All right, so those are called the monotremes. So on on table 16.7, it's going to have those listed. We're going to take a look at a couple of them. First of all, the monotremes, are the duck-billed platypus, are so cool, really cool creatures. They have fur, they have a bill like a duck, and they lay eggs and have webbed feet. The first time, they're very solitary and nocturnal animals, and so people didn't see them very often in nature. And somebody found a dead one and brought it to some scientists, and the scientist was sure that they had sewn animals together, that there was no way this was a true animal, a real animal. Turns out it's real. We've been able to do a little more research, but they are very private creatures. Look at the duckbill. It's not as hard as an actual duck's bill. It's a little more leathery. Not so much, not that you, but if you could kind of bend it. I'm trying to think more like a shoe, like shoe leather, how you can bend that, like that. But you can see very interesting facial features there. And we'll see also, oh, look at the babies. How cute is that? All right, so remember, they hatch out of eggs. Crazy, right? And there is that crazy poison dart kind of thing that is found in the male only, and they can actually spur a enemy or a prey and inject them with this venom, and of course it will kill them. Yeah, so pretty crazy stuff. Marsupial are also very interesting. Remember, they're going to have a non-placental. So where the monotremes have non-placental, they lay eggs. Now the marsupials have non-placental, but they develop in a pouch. Most of them are in Australia or New Zealand. We do have one in America called the possum. The examples would be kangaroos, koala, possums, wombats, and wallaroos. All right, so there's kind of what some of them look like there. Look, we have the sugar glider. I think those are found in other places besides Australia as well. The numbat, the marsupial mouse, the wombat. So probably most familiar to you would be the kangaroo and the koala, of course. Here's our kangaroo with the baby called the Joey, and one of my favorite videos of all time that I showed to many, many students. So if you've had me before, you've seen it, but I love it. Here it goes again.
Instead of laying eggs, they produce young without protective shells, and this grey kangaroo is about to do so. Out comes not a shelled egg, but a tiny, underdeveloped little worm. It weighs less than a lump of sugar. It has no back legs, but it has forelegs, and they are just strong enough to pull it through its mother's fur. It started on an extraordinary journey. To survive, it must get to a pouch higher up on its mother's belly. Instinctively, this tiny living particle climbs upwards against the pull of gravity and towards the smell of the pouch. After about 3 minutes, it reaches the lip of the pouch and clambers down to safety inside. There, it clamps its tiny mouth on its mother's nipple and takes its first meal of milk. As it grows, the ingredients of the milk coming from the nipple change to ensure that the infant gets exactly the nutrients it needs for each stage of its development. By the time it's 9 months old, it's getting a bit cramped. It's time to enter the outside world. It's almost like a second birth. He's a little unsteady at first, but Mum offers a helping hand. Now he's known as a Joey. It's all a bit much for one day, and he heads back to the safety and security of Mother's pouch. It will be another year before he's fully independent.
Okay, I just think that's so much fun. And furthermore, y'all, how could that have developed over millions of years? That had to have been created that way. All right, so that to me is proof, another proof of God, the existence of God and his creativity. It just fascinates me. And the fact that we were able to videotape it too as well. All right, koala. Who doesn't love a koala? These guys are amazing. They're interesting because they have a pouch because they're marsupials, but the pouch is upside down. All right, so it's facing downwards. So therefore, if they stand up straight, it's possible the baby could fall out. But they have a special musculature on it that actually closes it. It's kind of like a drawstring purse, like a you pull it, a drawstring purse closed, or your backpack, right? It's a muscle sort of like that, so they tend to stay in there. Koalas are really cool. When I was growing up, of course, we called them koala bears. They're not bears at all. They're marsupials. They spend most of their time in trees, so they're arboreal. They sleep about 18 hours a day, so they're kind of lazy. They can be vicious to each other. They can fight each other, that kind of thing. They say that the biggest problem with koala today, their biggest enemy is humans. We're moving into their territory. They must eat very low nutrition eucalyptus leaves. So that's probably why they're sleepy all the time, because the food they choose to eat doesn't give them a whole lot of energy. I don't know why they don't just vary their diet, but they don't. And so what they'll do is they'll crawl out of a tree and run across to another tree, and go up to the other tree for more food or whatever. And typically the way that they get killed is to get hit by cars. Very sad. They run across a road or something like that. But they've been very successful in captivity. So in zoos, they do really well. They do tend to bond with humans once they're in captivity. Look at that one, a little baby. How cute is that? All right, so they do pretty well in zoos. The American marsupial, yeah, sorry, we don't have the cute one right here. This is the possum. We have them here in Texas. They're pretty nasty. Sometimes you'll find them maybe in your trash can, because they're always looking around for food to eat, like in your trash, right? I think I have one. Used to dig underneath my science shed and lived under there for a while. They do play possum. So I don't know if you this. Playing possum is they're playing like they're dead, but these guys really go for it. So they don't just lay there and look around to see if you're watching anymore. They actually have rigor mortis. In other words, their body gets stiff, their face kind of squishes up, and they actually secrete a smell that smells like a dead body. I mean, so they really sell it on their playing possum right there. So it is a defense mechanism for other creatures like predators to think that they're already dead. There's a really great video out there of some little kids coming up to, the dad says, "Oh, look, here's a dead possum," and they go up and the thing jumps up and of course scares them. It's hilarious. This is the Xenartha. Remember we saw this on the list of the different types of mammals in there. So Xenartha is this guy. It's the sloth. Okay, talk about moving slowly. This guy moves very slowly. In fact, just like that, we looked at the manatee. They move slowly enough that they also have grasses and things growing on their fur. Yeah, so they're kind of gross. They stay up in the tree the whole time. They're completely 100% arboreal. I don't know if they come down to maybe switch trees or something, but they stay up there all the time. And they are very, very slow. I know that if you try to go see them, like in the South American forests, you can look up there and someone will say, "Oh, look, there's one." You can't see them. I was supposed to be able to see some of these in Costa Rica, and I stared and stared, never did see any of them. This is another in this same group. Look, it doesn't look anything like it. This is called the pink fairy armadillo. Anyway, yeah, it is pink, isn't it? I think it's the pink fairy, I think is what it's called. Very cool looking. All right, and I guess this brings us to what? Our lab? Let's see what this is. Oh no, yeah. What to do with our lab?
Many animals will run from their predators. But just because an animal can run doesn't mean it can hide from a predator with super hearing. The great gray owl lives in the Arctic, where even in summer, its meal can be buried under inches of snow. To hunt, it locates its favorite prey, mice and other small rodents, by listening for movement far below. The feathers surrounding each eye function like a dish antenna, directing sound to the ears. Each ear receives sound at a slightly different volume and angle, which allows the owl to pinpoint where the sound comes from. It focuses on unsuspecting prey and as much as 2 feet beneath the snow, and sets off on the attack. They continue to listen throughout the approach. To finish the job, owls have become masters of the dive bomb. Super hearing will ensure this owl a full stomach tonight.
Okay, so we learned about birds last week. So why are we looking at this way? Because what was the bird eating? It was eating a little mouse, right? So which is a mammal. Which brings us to our owl pellets. Now, I need you to understand what's going on here. The owl will eat a creature like a mouse, all right? And they will digest the digestible parts, so the meat and this kind of thing. But there are parts that they can't digest. Okay, so the hair, the bones, and stuff like this. So they will collect those up in their stomach. It'll stay in there, and then they will cough them out like a hairball. Okay, so I need you to understand this came out from a mouth of a owl. And they spit them up, they cough them out. And then what happens is that people who collect them, so people I buy them from, get them and they fumigate them. All right, so they're completely fine. No worries about anything gross in there. Okay. All right, so you're going to get your owl pellets out. You can watch what I do, and then you go and dissect yours. So let's see. Let's watch me do mine. Okay, students, here we go. So here you have your owl pellet. Okay, it's in a piece of foil. Now let me tell you, these have been completely fumigated. All right, so there's nothing at all in them that will make you, that's gross, right? And remember, it's been coughed up like a fur ball type of a thing. Okay, so you're gonna unwrap it. I have a kind of small one because I sent all the big ones with you. It's gonna look something like that. You can leave the foil out if you like to kind of catch the parts. Put it on a little paper plate or something like this. You don't need gloves. So I'm not using gloves because it's, like I said, completely fumigated. I would have sent gloves home with you if I thought of it. And then furthermore, gloves are kind of hard to get, so I don't have all that many. So, okay, so then you're going to start to just tear the parts. So what we have here is a lot of fur, all right, from the animal. So you can kind of maybe move the fur over this way. And then you'll start to see things like this. Okay, so there's a little bone. All right, so that's like a rib bone or something. So maybe, put the foil here and put your fur and stuff on the foil. And then the bones you start to find. Now y'all should, since you have bigger ones, you should be able to find the best kind of bones, which would of course be skulls. All right, so far I'm seeing lots of ribs and maybe, there's a tooth. All right, so this owl probably ate some rodents. So I see a bunch of teeth. Do y'all see those in there? Those are all teeth. Wow, gross. So remember, the owl can't digest these parts right there. There's a little bit of a jaw right there. All right, so just kind of keep tearing into it. And chances are you're going to find a nice skull. And I don't seem to have one in mine. That's too bad because I wanted to show you how to kind of deal with that. Some more bones. And lots of like little teeth and things like that. So this one, there's a big old, tooth right there. Yeah, where did I see? Right there. Yeah. Okay. All right, so that's all you're going to do is take that apart and you're going to find those. Now when you get to your skull, which I don't have here, you're going to take your little stick right here, and if you start peeling away, you can even use that for this if you like. Just moving through it like this, getting those little bones out of there. All right, there's like a ilium, a hip bone of a rodent. Remember, so we're talking about mammals here, and you can see that this is a mammal bone, right? So we know that a bird, of course, did this, but these are mammals in here. That's why I saved this for the mammal unit. Here's a big old tooth. A lot of times the teeth are yellow like this. Yeah. So if you find the skull, so use your little pick here to kind of dig the stuff out of where the eyeball sockets are and stuff like that. Typically what you'll do is you'll find the skull with the upper jaw and no lower jaw. That's normal because they're not, they're hinged by only a ligament right there, and so it usually falls off. So, but if you find a skull, you should be able to find the lower jaw as well. Now, when you get it, you're going to see a tooth sticking out of there, and if you pull on it, all right, so if you picture me holding a skull right now, if you pull on it, that tooth will actually come out, and it's a lot longer than you guessed. All right, and that's about it. Then you just take everything and throw all this away. Well, keep your bones out, and then you're going to take your little piece of paper right here, and you're going to start to see, all right, what kind of bone did I find? Okay, so look at your paper here. Is this right for you? I don't know. And then figure out which bones were in there. Okay, so it'll tell you right here, and it like we found a femur earlier, right? Lots of teeth and stuff like that. Okay. Here they are. They're labeled down here. Okay, so the letter here, right there. And you're going to write this up and then just tell me what kind of bones you found. Okay? All right, y'all have fun with it. Typically, students really enjoy using the owl pellets. I hope y'all did too. All right, very good. Okay, so this is what like a better owl pellet, maybe one of yours would look like. You're going to see there's a skull visible in there, maybe a couple of skulls right there. And when you get finished, you should have something that looks like that. Okay, so that really great skull there and those teeth and jaws down there. It's just teeth coming. So you can pull that little tooth out there is what I was telling you. Okay, so there was just another thing. You should have, I sent home with you a sheet that should give you the ideas of what they are. Typically what we find are rodents. I have not ever found any birds, although I have found feathers before, which is kind of interesting. But a friend of mine told me that a lot of times we'll get them from a company that raises these owls on purpose, and they feed them the rodents. And now they can do some hunting on their own, but they typically they're fed pretty well, so they eat the rodents. All right, y'all, so that's it for Module 16. Next week, we're going to have a little, what's called the anatomy preview. I'm just going to go through kind of a long video of the human body and all the parts of it. Your book has a lot of stuff about the human body, but I'm not expecting you to fill all that stuff in, okay? So you may want to fill some of it in, but you don't have to fill all of it in, okay? And I won't ask you, I think there's one question on the final about the human body. Which bringing up the final reminds me that I'm going to really try to get the quiz for Module 16 onto the Google Classroom, and I'm going to try to get the final exam on there, which means you can just take it online and click ABC right there online. All right, and I think it gives you the grade right away and that kind of thing. Okay, so I'll see about that. I've heard some teachers complain because sometimes you'll answer something and maybe you should get partial credit for it or something, so I don't know about with multiple choice. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed this week's lab. And next week we'll have our last class before the final. Excellent. Bye, gang.